The Osage. They have the worst land possible. But they outsmarted everybody. The land had oil on it. Black gold. Money flows freely here now.
I do love that money, sir.
Welcome back to DMR. Thank you for tuning back in, as always, much obliged. So today I'll be reviewing a much anticipated film for 2023, which is Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. We've also got Robert De Niro and Lily Gladstone as well, about a tale of the Osage Indians about 100 years ago and the wealth they accumulated with the oil fields that they own. So before we go through the trailer and the film, let's take a look at an MJ Bale suit, which may have slotted in very nicely for that era. Have a look at this thing. This is the Durante jacket and trousers. So this noble natural fiber has been woven in Italy into a two-tone grey pinstripe. Cut to their regular fit, it features a natural shoulder and a notched lapel. You're definitely going to be looking like Robert De Niro rocking up in this thing. A must for your MJ Bale collection. Alright, so Killers of the Flower Moon rates very highly on Rotten Tomatoes. Now this film is 3 hours and 26 minutes long. It is a marathon of a movie. It's been put out by Apple Films, I think it is, and it comes on Apple TV next month or in a few weeks. But being a movie reviewer, I wanted to go and see it in the cinema and get that cinematic experience for myself. So let's go over a bit of the plot, shall we? So the Osage Indians in Oklahoma in the US of A, they were given land which they thought was worthless, but they fooled basically everybody, and underneath that land was Texas gold, oil, basically. It was oil fields, very rich oil fields, and they became the richest people per capita in the world at that time. So a lot of white people or Caucasian people flocked to this particular area. A lot of them were racing around in aeroplanes, sports cars, living a luxury life, and they had white or Caucasian chauffeurs doing all the work for them. So very rich people, but they had people that were eyeing them off in terms of their wealth, and all these murders started to take place with a lot of killings of these Osage Indians, and basically all hell breaking loose in this particular era. So we've got Leonardo DiCaprio playing Ernest Burkhart. Now, I don't know if he's going to win an Oscar for this role, purely because of the fact that this guy is a bit of a weasel. Not a bit of a weasel, he is a weasel. So he comes back from World War I out of the trenches, and as soon as he steps off the steam train, a fight breaks out with some people on the station, and you can tell right away what kind of guy this guy is. He's a bit of a weasel, he's a bit of a worm, he's not very well educated, and he's very easily led. Very easily led by his uncle, which is played by Robert De Niro, and he is saturated himself within this Osage community for the basis that he is after their wealth as well. So when he comes back from the war, Leonardo DiCaprio, that is, De Niro's character basically pushes him over to Molly, which is played by Lily Gladstone. She's Osage, and basically gets him and her to hook up, and so goes the story of him trying to get their wealth throughout this particular point in time. So that's basically the plot for this particular film. So I've got to say, the performances in this film are very, very good. We've got De Niro, he's obviously one of the best actors of our generation. You've got Leonardo DiCaprio, of course. He's going to take over the reins of Robert De Niro's legacy about, again, being one of the greatest actors of all time. Knockout performances by these guys. But as I said, so I don't like this particular character that Leonardo DiCaprio portrays. He does it quite well. He's always walking around like this, very similar to what Robert De Niro kind of looks like now, and he has very bad teeth as well. But you just don't like the weasel activities that this guy goes about behind the scenes in terms of trying to get these people to outsmart the Osage. He's involved in a lot of murder plots throughout this particular film, and some of the stuff that he does to his own family as well is just despicable. So again, I love how Robert De Niro in this particular film is a wolf in sheep's clothing. On the surface, he's all a nice man. He does lots of fundraising. He builds lots of places in the town for the people. But behind closed doors, he is just after their money completely. So I really did love that aspect of it. And Lily Gladstone, a knockout role for her. She's very, very powerful up on the screen when you do see her. She's probably outstrips the other two in terms of a performance, I would say, just because the way that she portrays Molly Burkhart throughout this film and her relationship with her family members that are all dying around her, and she can seem quite helpless at times. She also has diabetes. She's quite sick in the film as well. I won't go into too many spoilers about what happens to her directly, but some very powerful performances. So the cinematography in the film is immaculate as always. It feels very lived in, but when I say lived in, when you look back at this film, everything feels new for that era, if that makes sense. So when they're in a nice home, everything feels modern, but it's 100 years ago. So they've done very well with all the world that they've portrayed up on the screen. I loved all the stations with the steam trains and all that. The costumes in it was immaculate. All the white or Caucasian people, when they're walking down the station, they're staring at Molly Burkhart. I love that point of view shot that Scorsese did with this particular film. It's a really good looking film when you do watch it up on the screen. Jesse Plemons is also in the film playing a FBI agent called White, I think his last name was. He's really good in the film as well. He basically rocks up after a situation where the Osage go to the president and say, look, you got to help us out. All of our people are dying. The police are doing nothing. Can you please send someone down to investigate what the hell is going on with these murders? And he comes down and he starts sniffing around the situation and the area, and that really throws off Leonardo DiCaprio's character. He hates this guy, doesn't like him, doesn't appreciate that he's there. Obviously because things are going to start to unravel with everything that he is involved with. You've also got Brendan Fraser in it as well. He has a short role in this movie, but very powerful role. He plays a solicitor or a lawyer for Robert De Niro when everything hits the fan. So I really did like him in this particular film as well. So again, a very long runtime in this particular movie. It's not going to be for everyone because it could have been a 4-part mini-series on Apple TV, 100%. But I liked it because of the setting. It's a Scorsese film. It's no different to The Irishman, which I've actually started watching again, that came out in 2019. Well over 3 hours, but it's one of those movies that you're not going to get bored with it, but you can come back to it every night or so and watch the rest of it, if that makes sense. So people will like this film. It depends on how you're going to watch it, whether it's on Apple TV when it comes out, or if you're willing to buckle up for the whole 3.5 hours, go and see it in the cinema directly. And is this my most loved Martin Scorsese film? No, I don't think it is. There are much better films that I personally like better than this particular film, like The Wolf of Wall Street. Of course, you've got Goodfellas. They are not going to be beat in terms of being absolute icons, but it's probably one of the best Martin Scorsese films, being factual in terms of an event that took place 100 years ago. That's an important story that needed to be told. So the pros and cons for Killers of the Flower Moon. So the pros: cinematography in it is immaculate, as you would expect. Everyone does a fantastic performance with each individual role that they are given. Again, probably not my favourite DiCaprio role, only because he is playing a very weasel-like character. De Niro knocks it out of the park as per usual, but Lily Gladstone probably is the contender for the Oscar, I would say, in this particular film. So the storyline is very intriguing. It's very good to watch up on the screen, especially all the ins and outs of how all these particular murders take place, the aspect of what these people did in society, how wealthy they were, and all the white people and Caucasian people that basically came to these particular areas looking to steal the wealth from the Osage. So I thought it all wrapped up very, very well. The cons for it, again, I've mentioned it a few times, the runtime in it is extremely long. It could be smashed down into a 4-part mini-series, which may be enjoyable a lot more for a lot of people. But all in all, the verdict for this particular film, I will give it my number 2 rating. I'll give it my number 2 rating, which is buy it on 4K or Blu-ray. It is going to come out obviously on Apple TV, but it's one of those films that you're not going to get sick of. But because of the runtime on it, it's something you take away and watch in bite-sized segments or sittings, if that makes sense. So thank you for tuning in to my review for Killers of the Flower Moon. And as always, ladies on the Menjay.
Expecting a miracle to make all this go away. You know they don't happen anymore.
So there you have it, Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. Another cracker of a film from this guy. Thank you for tuning in to DMR as always.